Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov. Lee and to your mishpacha. Mazel Tov to Jeremy and your mishpacha. I want to welcome back all those who were stuck in Israel. Traveled in many different ways to get back. Bruchim habayim. Welcome home. It was a challenging time and remains so. So earlier this week, I got up early in the morning, grabbed my tallis, and headed into the car. But instead of driving to Minyan, I drove up to Burlington, to the ICE facility. I'd arranged to meet my friend, Reverend Rabbi from Pilgrim Congregational Church here in Lexington, and she looked really good. She had her stole on, she had her collar, and it was clear she was a religious leader. I had like a black coat. I was like, how would anyone know I'm Jewish? Tried to do my kippah, but for some of us that's a little more challenging. Got cold. Took out my tallis, wrapped it around myself. It's a big tallis. Blowing in the wind. Tzitzis dragging in the mud. It's kind of a sight. But we were there for a mitzvah. We were there to serve as chaplains for the people who were waiting in line to be processed. And we saw people from all different backgrounds, from the Philippines, from South and Central America, from Africa. People, I think, in the words of Emma Lazarus, inscribed forever on our Statue of Liberty, people who are yearning to breathe free. We walked over to the building, holding signs that made it clear that we were clergy, and inviting people to pray. And we walked over to these doors. And I was a little afraid to walk to the doors because I know a bunch of people have been arrested by those doors. But we went over to the people in line and asked anyone if they just wanted to say a prayer. Now, there was a big language barrier because neither Rabbi nor I knew Spanish or Portuguese, but a few knew English, and one man named Moises said, yeah, I'd like you to pray for me. And Rabbi offered this beautiful, spontaneous prayer asking for God's strength. Very moving. And then the doors opened. Two guards came out, and one of them asked if we had any business inside the building. We didn't. But I explained we're here to offer support and to pray with people. Told us we couldn't meet there and we needed to go back to the street. And so I turned to him and I said, would you like me to say a prayer for you? He didn't object. And so I prayed that he would be safe. I thanked him for his service to our country. I prayed that God's spirit of justice and kindness would fill him and all the people working there. Prayed for him and his family, as well as all those being processed in the facility. It's a little moment of human connection. And so Rabbi and I moved back to the sidewalk, and for the next few hours we waved to people, offered a prayer, said, may God bless you, as people walked and drove by. Thinking about it, if I had looked at it, two white clergy with religious garb, I don't know what was going on with my tallis at the time, while dozens and dozens and dozens of people walked by from all other ethnic backgrounds. Now, some of them waved back, some of them looked puzzled, like, what are you guys doing? But some understood exactly why we were there and appreciated our presence. Over those 2 hours, we saw over 100 people come and go. Some came with lawyers, easy to spot the lawyers. They had Alexis's, and so it was obvious. Some came with family members and friends. Some came in wheelchairs. And some came alone. And then there were the children. We saw more than 20 little children who came through that experience. Some look totally bewildered. Some had those wide, searching eyes, knowing that this was something serious, but not understanding what it was. And a few of them stand out in my mind. There was a little girl in a tutu dress, twirling around as she approached the building. Such joy. I think the hardest image for me was actually a little boy who had a tan coat. He walked in with his mother. He walked in on his own. But later I saw him come out of the building. He's no longer walking on his own, but being held and carried by his mother, who rubbed his back. You could see the sadness wash over his face. When it was time to go, I recited a prayer of gratitude, just Rabbi and myself. Gratitude for the gifts in our lives, gratitude that the two of us have been able to be present for these people. Then I went on with the rest of my day, calls, emails, meetings, plans, hospital visits, all of the things that I do, ordinary and holy work of synagogue life. Later in the evening, I was able to open my email. No, I did. Doesn't always happen, but I did finally. And the first email I read was again from Rabbi. She had written to me and others in LUA, Lexington United Against Antisemitism, an organization, interfaith organization we created to combat anti-Semitism. And she wrote, quote, "I'm so sorry to read about the synagogue in Michigan. Just thinking of all of you and our community in the wake of another terrible incident. Two of us began the day trying to help strangers feel a little bit less alone. Then we ended the day with her helping me and the Jewish community feel a little bit less alone." And then many more messages started to come into my email and to my texts from all different groups and religious leaders with whom I've been working. Some came from the Black Ministers Alliance, which meets with a group of rabbis every month, including myself. One was from from Elder Mark. He wrote, quote, a whole bunch of things. I'll just excerpt it. "May we all heal from the lasting scars inflicted in the attacks today on your communal space. Community helps bring sense and meaning when confronting absurdity." That word and those words stayed with me. Right? Community is what can help us when the world is upside down and absurd. And community is exactly where we are on this Shabbat, as Lee spoke to so nicely. This is Shabbat Hahodesh. Right? This is some level a simple Shabbat. It's a reminder, if you have a lot of things, maybe some canned goods, start cleaning them out for Pesach. It's a little reminder, time to get ready. The month of Nisan is here, and 2 weeks later, we'll be at the Seder. As the Torah says, Hahodesh hazel lachem rosh chodashim. This month shall be for you the beginning of the months. Now, this is a commandment given to the Israelites while they are still in Egypt, before they've actually left slavery. We're given this commandment to mark time. But our tradition hears it much more than that. It's about understanding where the Israelites are and the change that they are about to be experiencing. The slavery that they're enduring is not simply about controlling their bodies, which were controlled by Pharaoh, but slavery is about controlling someone's time. Pharaoh didn't merely decide what buildings and pyramids that the Israelites were going to build. He would decide when they would rise in the morning, when they would labor, when they would rest, whether they had the dignity to mark sacred time at all. A slave doesn't set his own schedule. A slave doesn't own her own days. Pharaoh was claiming ownership over Jewish time. So it's so striking that the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people is Hahodesh hazeh lachem. This month shall be for you. Your calendar is now going to be yours. Before even the Israelites are leaving Egypt physically, God begins by spiritually giving them the most precious thing that you can give, giving them back their time. And that's really where freedom begins. Freedom begins when the oppressed no longer let the oppressor define the rhythm of their lives. I think that's why Shabbat Hahodesh speaks so powerfully to this moment. Think about it. What do terrorists want to do? They not only want to attack our bodies and our buildings, but they try to organize our lives around fear and instill fear in us. They try to make us ask, will we actually continue to gather? Will parents bring their children to preschool, to religious school? Will people still come to shul? That's really the deeper goal of terror. It's not only to wound, but it's also to make fear decide how we live. And Shabbat Hahodesh says definitively, no. Pharaoh is not going to define our time. Terror will not define our time. We will still gather. We will still daven. We will still show up for one another. That's the message for me today of Hahodesh hazeh lachem. Don't hand over your calendar to Pharaoh. Don't hand over your sacred time to fear. I want to add a couple layers and go a little bit deeper here. The first one's from Rashi. Rashi does an amazing job quoting from the Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael. This is an early compilation of midrashim of commentary. And this one imagines God trying to teach Moses this first commandment. And Moses is like, how do I do it? What does it mean this month's going to be the first of all the months? So God says, look up into the sky. See that little sliver, that tiny crescent of moon. You'll look up and you'll notice that. That's what renewal can look like, God says to Moses. Moses is given the confidence to understand this mitzvah. And Moses is given a little bit of hope, that little sliver. Healing begins, I think, as a little sliver, a little opening. After a frightening event, we may think that renewal can come quickly and everything can be repaired. The Torah realizes that healing begins by seeing the first visible crescent, that first little sliver of hope. Think about it after you have a loss, first person who shows up to Shiva, that call, that text you might receive. Begin small. And then the rabbis do this remarkable move with the moon. It's not you seeing it. The rabbis say that to announce the new moon, which would be set in Jerusalem and then shared with the Jewish people around the world, it's not one person, but two people have to witness it. Two people have to come forward and testify. In other words, renewal becomes real when one person says, I saw it, and then another person says, yeah, I saw it too. No one can renew alone. People heal because someone bears witness, someone says, I see your pain, I see your courage, I am here for you, hineni. Sometimes that first sliver might be a rabbi and a minister standing in a cold sidewalk outside a detention center saying, may God bless you. Sometimes it's an email that says, just thinking of you today. Sometimes it's clergy of all these other faiths reaching out after an anti-Semitic attack and saying, we're with you. That's the light to begin a new month. That reminds us we're not alone. That's what Rabbi did for me and for our community. She wanted to extend that message to. That's what Elder Mark did, and the other emails and texts I received, they weren't just for me. They were for all of you. And that's what Shabbat Hahodesh asks and invites us to. The message of this Shabbat is simple and demanding. Pharaoh tried to control not only our bodies, but our time. And terror tries to do the same. But Shabbat Hahodesh says, do not surrender to fear. Keep gathering. Keep davening. Keep showing up for one another. When others reach out along and across the lines of faith and friendship to say, we are with you, receive that gift for what it is. One of the first slivers of redemption. For that too is how freedom begins. Shabbat Shalom.